Picture this. It's the 2nd century of our era. Rome rules the world. Legionaries march on roads laid down like arteries. Emperors decree laws from palaces that span continents. The Mediterranean, Mare Nostrum, our sea, is a Roman lake. And yet, in the shadow of Roman dominance, there's this quiet, bookish man wandering the back roads of Greece with a pen in his hand. His name is Pausanias. He's not a general. He's not a senator. He's not a revolutionary plotting to overthrow the empire. He's something else, a travel writer. And what he writes is strange, because he's not really describing inns or road conditions or prices of bread in the agora. He's cataloguing myth, shrines, temples, tombs, groves. He points to ruins and says, "Here is where Orestes fled, after killing his mother. Here's the fountain where Narcissus saw his reflection. Here's the altar where Heracles sacrificed before his labors." Pausanias is writing in an era when the Greek world has been politically dead for centuries. Athens is no longer an empire. Sparta no longer a military terror. Corinth and Thebes are shadows of their former selves. But their stories, the myths, still live. And that's what Pausanias gives us, a travel guide where geography and memory blur into one seamless tapestry of myth. And that's why this series is called The Wrath of Pausanias. Because Pausanias is not just describing stones, he's pointing at scars. He's telling us that myth is history is myth, and geography itself is soaked in blood and legend. And if you're a Dan Carlin listener, you know what this means. This is the part where the past stops being ancient and starts feeling disturbingly modern. Think about it. We build monuments to wars. We visit cemeteries where our grandfathers fought. We tell stories about national heroes. Pausanias was doing the same thing. Only for him, the heroes were literally Heracles and Theseus. The wars were Thebes and Troy. And behind all of this, there's a haunting truth. The Greeks themselves blurred history and myth deliberately. These weren't just fairy tales for them, they were explanations, a way to make sense of a chaotic world. Imagine walking across Greece in Pausanias's time. You climb up a rocky hillside, and at the summit is a half-collapsed temple. Pausanias tells you, this is where Zeus struck down a giant. You step into a grove. Pausanias whispers, this is where Persephone was seized into the underworld. You enter a theater. He reminds you, here's where thousands once wept at tragedies of Oedipus and Antigone. Every stone is a page. Every ruin is a sentence. The whole landscape is a library written in myth. And Pausanias, our nerdy, obsessive librarian, is reading it to us. Now, why do we start here? Why spend an entire marathon just on setup? Because to understand Pausanias, you need to understand how the Greeks thought about myth and memory. They didn't separate them. For them, Heracles was as real as Alexander. Theseus was as real as Pericles. The Trojan War was as real as Marathon. And this means that as we follow Pausanias from city to city, site to site, we're not just tourists. We're walking into a country where the boundary between history and legend doesn't exist. Let me go on a tangent here. And if you're new to this style, get used to tangents, because we're going to take a lot of them. Think about our own world. Think about America, or France, or China. Do we not do the same thing? Washington chopping down a cherry tree. Joan of Arc leading armies at 16. Mao swimming across the Yangtze River. Some of those things happened, some didn't. Some are half-true, exaggerated, mythologized, but we tell them anyway, Because they're not about fact, they're about identity. That's what the Greeks were doing, and that's why Pausanias' text is so valuable. He's showing us which myths still mattered centuries later. It's like if you could time travel to 2030 CE and find a dusty guidebook where someone has written, "Here's where Martin Luther King gave his speech. Here's the Lincoln Memorial. Here's the field where Gettysburg was fought." That's what Pausanias is doing for ancient Greece. So in this series, we're going to walk with Pausanias across Greece, to Athens, where Theseus wrestles myths into a national identity, to Delphi, the navel of the world, where Apollo speaks through a woman's mouth, to Olympia, where sports, politics, and religion fuse into something disturbingly familiar, to Epidaurus, where theatre and healing blur, to Sparta, where memory and myth turn discipline into destiny, to Corinth, the crossroads of trade and sin, to Thebes, the city of tragedy cursed from its very founding. And along the way, we'll take long detours into mythology, Theseus and the Minotaur, Heracles' labors, Oedipus, the Trojan War. And we'll take even longer tangents into modern parallels, nationalism, memory, religion, sports fanaticism, intergenerational trauma. Because that's what Pausanias unlocks, the realization that the human brain hasn't changed. The same impulses that drove Thebans to worship Dionysus drive us to build stadiums, go to war, or argue on Twitter. Now, and this is important, this isn't going to be neat. Pausanias isn't neat. He doesn't give us a clean history. He rambles, he digresses, he tells us about a shrine, then about a myth, then about a king, then about something his grandmother's neighbor's cousin supposedly saw in a dream. And that's exactly the style we're going to embrace. We're not doing bullet points here. We're going to dive so deep into tangents that you'll forget where we started. And then, hopefully, we'll circle back and realize, oh, that's why it mattered. Why call it the wrath of Pausanias? Because there's a hidden anger in all of this. Pausanias is writing about a Greece that's already fallen. The Rome he lives in is not the Greece of Pericles or Leonidas. It's a Greece of ruins, a Greece remembered more than lived. And yet, in writing all this down, Pausanias is preserving something. He's refusing to let myth die. And there's something almost wrathful about that, a stubborn insistence that the past still matters, even in the face of empire, decline, and oblivion. So, welcome to the journey. We're going to spend the next, who knows, dozens of hours wandering Greece with Pausanias as our guide. But don't think of this as a travelogue. Think of it as a ghost tour. Because every ruin we pass, every temple we step into, every grove we walk through, is haunted. And the myths Pausanias tells, they're not just stories, they're shadows. They're the ghosts of a civilization that knew, better than anyone, that life is short, glory is fleeting, and memory is everything. That's episode 1.